Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is the YULAA and CPAC collaborative project for the youth group and LGBTQ research project group. And I'm Marie, and my team members are Matthew and Spencer. And we're just going to be presenting some of our research that we've done, some takeaways we have, and have some sort of discussion at the end as well. So just to introduce our research topics first, we have 4 different topics, starting with challenges that specifically impact youth in the intersection of the disability and LGBTQ plus communities. And then we'll be moving to some examples of youth experiences within schools, focusing on school culture. And third, we'll have significant characteristics of the process of transition into the adult world. So youth as a definition that includes this transition process. So it's not just looking at lower levels of education, but also into college and into the workforce. And then fourth, we'll end off with some of the resources that are available in schools and local communities, as well as needs that we see and gaps that are still present.
So we're going to start by talking about some of the challenges and intersectional statistics. So first, 36% of disabled LGBTQ plus students report having been bullied or harassed in school as a result of their disability. And then 30% say that they have felt unsafe at school as a result of their disability. Now, getting into some of the intersectional statistics, all of which come from the Human Rights Campaign, we find that 15% of LGBTQ plus youth self-report having a disability. And then breaking that down a little bit further, 5% of LGBTQ plus youth report having deafness or hearing disability, and 5% report being diagnosed with autism.
To further illustrate some of the statistics, this is taking a specific study that was by Lund and Scott called Retrospective and Current Peer Victimization in College Students with Disabilities, Examining the Intersectionality of Sexual Orientation and Gender. And it draws from a study done with 7,000 high school students and finds that the sexual minority status compounds with the disability status to increase the likelihood of peer victimization at this level of education. And it also draws from longitudinal and retrospective research showing that peer victimization might have long-term results and impacts on various types of well-being. So any peer victimization that might have occurred earlier on in life can have long-term effects that persist into college and into adult life. And then it finishes off with some guidance on how college counselors, mental health counselors, and other healthcare individuals can take this information to provide resources for students at this intersection.
Yeah, and regarding the kind of transition process into adulthood for LGBTQ plus youth and as well as LGBTQ plus youth with disabilities, as this can range definitely range from other youth. So as these LGBTQ plus youth, as well as LGBTQ plus youth with disabilities, view adulthood as a transition from dependence on others to now taking responsibility for themselves as well as their relationships. And this can come in the form of interdependence, which is characterized by mutual support and care. And this would be considered one of the key aspects of adulthood in romantic, familial, as well as professional contexts. And there's shift from being dependent on parents and caregivers that care for them, marking this significant milestone in this transition into adulthood. And while traditional markers of adulthood, like having children, may definitely still apply, LGBTQ plus youth redefine adulthood based on their own experiences and priorities, and they often also challenge conventional norms. Some statistics on this, 29% of LGBTQ plus youth have experienced homelessness, been kicked out or run away. LGBTQ plus employees experience harassment and discrimination at a greater level than their other non-LGBTQ plus identifying colleagues. And LGBTQ plus youth may also experience less supportive school environments. They may struggle more in school, and they have higher school dropout rates or have lower aspirations for post-secondary education than other populations.
And then we're going to discuss some potential resources for individuals at the intersection of the LGBTQ plus community and individuals with disabilities. So first, there is the Rainbow Alliance of the Deaf. This specifically is for deaf and hard of hearing individuals and LGBTQ plus individuals, and this is a nationwide community. However, there is a little less impact of this community in the Northeast at this time. Then the Blind LGBT Pride International. This is a virtual community, so all over the nation as well. There's the Trevor Project, which is a quite popular one, and a lot of people know this focuses mostly on suicide prevention for LGBTQ plus youth. And then the Rainbow Support Group, which is a Connecticut-based group, but it is mostly providing resources for adults at this time. So kind of the main takeaway from these potential resources is that there's still a need for youth-based resources in the Northeast and Connecticut areas.
And some more potential resources specifically in schools that would definitely benefit LGBTQ plus youth as well as LGBTQ plus youth with disabilities are definitely professional development opportunities, LGBTQ plus inclusive anti-bias programs, as well as just ongoing monitoring of policy compliance, as well as statistics have shown that gay straight alliances or gender sexuality alliances, also known as GSAs, or other LGBTQ plus student clubs within schools can mitigate negative experiences, reduce risky behaviors, as well as lower distress. And in addition, just other anti-racism and LGBTQ plus specific programs would definitely benefit these youth.
And finally, some resources for allies. So the Connecticut government releases tip sheets and guidelines for how individuals can effectively work with LGBTQ plus disabled youth. However, these resources are mostly focused on LGBTQ plus youth. So there are resources for care providers, families, and teachers. We'll go ahead and open up the care providers one to show you what that looks like. It mostly has resources to teach care providers how to create a safe and inclusive environment. And then a similar tip sheet exists for both families in order to create a caring and safe home, as well as teachers to create a classroom environment that is safe and welcoming for LGBTQ plus youth.
So now we'll discuss some of the afterlives of the project, by which we mean future directions that this information can lead us towards. And so starting off, there's a need to address the gap in the literature because there's this stark gap from our research that we found where a lot of the literature fails to address intersectional topics. A lot of the time it's mostly focused on one group or another. And there's a lack of sort of cohesive research done on different intersectionalities. And the same goes for the resources that we were able to find, because it's often possible to find resources for queer youth or for disabled youth, but not both together. And yeah, so there's this clear lack of intersectional both spaces and online resources knowledge. And we wanted to highlight True Colors as one organization that was in Connecticut and how to focus on amplifying youth voices and intersectionality, but it's since lost federal funding. And this demonstrates more of how the gap in resources and literature can also be attributed to where federal funding is directed towards and where our attention is focused to. One quote that I found that was pertinent to this topic was from this article that was called Increasing Opportunities for Healthy Sexual Socialization in LGBTQ plus people with IDD, the role of LGBTQ plus organizations and community. And it says, the absence of statistical information about LGBTQ plus individuals with IDD is concerning as it further points out the invisibility and lack of support for healthy sexual development in the individuals belonging to this intersectional identity. And so this is an example of an article that does address intersectional issues, but in the article itself, it even points towards this general gap in the literature, and it points to how it's really vital for more work to be done in this area in order for us to be able to care for these individuals and provide resources that are very critical. Finishing off, I'm highlighting some of the future steps that can be taken from this project and from other efforts. And I think that one of the most important things is to sort of embark on this collective effort to reduce this gap. And CPAC is one of the organizations that's working really well to do that. And so if you are a youth between the ages of 14 and 26 who fits into this intersectional identity, please feel free to contact CPAC to join the Youth Advisory Board, which was created for the youth, and it's meant to be driven by the youth as well. And there's a lot of work to be done from presentations to writing to content creation to propel this effort. Thank you so much.